Hello to all. Today we will start with a spatial operating system by the name disk operating system that is there in your unit 4 of your syllabus. And we are acquainted with a lot of operating systems that we have seen in our previous video lectures, such as Windows, Android, Linux, and similarly DOS, that is disk operating system, is also one of the operating systems that were very popular previously. Let us try to know more about DOS. So in this video lecture, we'll try to cover up a little bit on the history of DOS, then what is meant by directories and files in DOS, and the internal and external commands available in DOS. So to begin with, DOS is totally non-graphical command line operating system, and it was created initially mainly for the IBM compatible computers. So as you can see in the pictures provided, the IBM compatible computers looked like as given in the bottommost pic. So and those computers, you can see how the CPU looked like or the monitor looked like. Those computers during those times were like all manufactured by IBM company, and it worked only on DOS operating system. When you open the computer, what screen that you got was something like given on your top of your slide. You can see it is a black and white screen, and there is a command line where you can start typing some commands to get some desired output. So it was not at all graphical. It was basically a command line screen. And the birth of MS-DOS took place due to Mr. Tim Patterson, who had actually originally written MS-DOS, and it was introduced by Microsoft later in August 1981. Okay? And it was updated again in 1994 when MS-DOS was released. So I remember in the late 90s, I have been at a very early school stage of mine. I remember using these kind of machines at my primary level and trying out some basic DOS commands, because that was all that was available during the early 90s. And in the 90s, when Windows operating system was introduced, still MS-DOS was also used as a part of your Windows operating system. How? Because at that point in time, it was not a full and fledged only MS-DOS operating system. It was Windows operating system, but it can be used, even it can be used now. You can try out by typing command prompt in your search bar, okay, below. So if you're using Windows, just try looking in for command prompt window, and it equally behaves like MS-DOS. But we do not prefer doing all work in MS-DOS because it is command based, and we prefer the GUI interface, which got very popular right from 1984, where everything is graphical and just a click or maybe a key press does a lot of tasks easily rather than writing commands for each and every work. So Apple Macintosh was developed in 1984, and from there the surge of interest of working in GUIs, graphical user interfaces, became apparent, and no one really kept using only MS-DOS for using computers. It was used as a part of other Windows operating system, like the Windows operating system. So DOS is basically command line. It has no GUI, and you have to learn the commands if you have to use MS-DOS. Linux also allows working in using commands, and in Linux also you may get a command line. So how does it differ? Because Linux is very popular now, MS-DOS hardly used by users. So why does Linux retain popularity, whereas MS-DOS is not much in use? It's because the first point of difference and the main point of difference is that Linux is a multi-user, multitasking operating system. Okay? Whereas DOS is a single user and single tasking operating system. So basically, if you're using MS-DOS in your machine, only one user can use it and for doing only one task at a time. Whereas in Linux, many users can use Linux at the same time, as different users. Okay, so and a single user can perform multitasks at the same time. So that gives an advantage to Linux. And Linux has a lot of security features like file ownership, file permissions. You can give permissions, or like you can give just read permission to of a file to a user, or there can be a write permission, editing permissions, and so on. Whereas MS-DOS does not have these kind of built-in security concepts. Again, in MS-DOS, the entire root directories can be viewed based on the drives. Like in Windows, we have C drive, D drive, A drive, and MS-DOS allows those drives to be viewed separately into directories, and each drive will be called as the root directory. Whereas in Linux, it's like an inverted tree file-like system where directories and files branch from only a single directory, which is called as the root directory. So basically, Linux will have only one root directory, whereas in MS-DOS, the root directories are independent. Like if you want to view C drive becomes a root directory. Next, if you want to view D drive then becomes the root directory. So there can be independent root directories, whereas in Linux, it's only one root directory that is possible. Then, if you want to check the path of a file, like let's say it is in D drive, under D drive it is in folder by the name folder1, then inside folder1 there's a folder by the name XYZ, and the file resides in XYZ. So to have a look at the path, you will find that the backslash is used for MS-DOS. I'll tell you how. Whereas in Linux, the / is used to separate the directories and the files in the path. So I will mention it again once more later in one of my example. Then if you have to give a file name, okay, it's for let's say any doc file or image file and so on, Linux file names can be up to 255 characters, whereas in MS-DOS it is limited only to 8 characters, and after that you can give a 3-character file name extension. Like if it's a doc file, .doc, if it is a text file, it is .txt, if it is an image, maybe it is a .jpg. So it has a 3-character extension. However, the file names, you cannot give too big file names, so it is just limited to 8 characters. Whereas in case of Linux, it supports up to 255 characters. So imagine I have created a file and that contains your lesson plan. So I may try to give a file name as lesson plan of BCA1. So such a big file name is not possible in MS-DOS, whereas in Linux it is possible. Again, file names are case sensitive in Linux, so you have to be a bit cautious. So let's say lesson plan, capital LESSON and small letter LESSON is not the same, whereas in DOS it's not case sensitive, so it all means the same. Lastly, the commands that you have to learn, okay, for MS-DOS, the commands are limited in case of MS-DOS. It's not a wide, rich variety, whereas in Linux, the number of commands are much more, and it has greater power, greater flexibility, and the ease of use is much better compared to MS-DOS. So these are the 7 main differences between Linux and DOS. There are much more, but let us limitize our learning to here as of now. And then, what are directories and files in MS-DOS? You are acquainted with Windows as of now, so it should be clear that directories are nothing but folders. Instead of calling it folders, we call in DOS or Linux as directories. So there will be many directories in your system to separate the files according to the type. For example, you want to keep all the, let's say, slides or the PPTs, PowerPoints, or maybe all the PDF files related to my subject in one directory, computer fundamentals. And maybe you have kept all the PDF files or PowerPoint files or any related documents related to another subject, let's say C programming, in another directory. So we maintain separate directories so that we cluster the similar files in one directory and other similar files in another directory. In that way, it becomes easier. So let's say you have a lot of pictures, personal pictures that you want to keep it. You may not mix up with one syllabus or let's say one course. You keep all your personal pictures again in one directory. So in that way, we categorize and keep files in separate directories. What are files then? Files are like a single piece of information, and it is given a single name. Let's say there is a paragraphs of textual information and which has been typed and it has to be saved. So it has to be saved as a file name. So in MS-DOS, it can be, the file name can be 1 to 8 characters, and then it will have a extension of 3 characters. So if it's a text file, it will be, let's say any file name, abc.txt. Then all these files ultimately have to be stored in a directory. So it depends which directory you choose to store the files. Okay, so a directory can have just a single file or many files, and a directory rather can also store a subdirectory. That means a directory inside a directory. Now this is how using one of the commands, let me tell you the command tried here is the tree command. So by trying the tree command, this is how you can have a look at the directories and subdirectories under a particular drive. So here the root directory is the C drive that we are considering, and under this by using the tree command, you can see how the pipeline symbols are can be seen to understand which directory is under what. So under C directory here, C drive, you can see there are directories by the name banners, btips, sidin, comp, download, drivers, feed, and so on. Again, under this directory sidin, you can see there are 3 subdirectories: big, people, and tips. So in this way, with the help of the tree command, you can see the entire tree-like structure of the directories and the subdirectories. So this is an interesting command often used to check the hierarchy of the directories under a particular drive. So here, if you have a look, let's say under C drive, there is a directory by the name Windows. Under Windows, again, there is a subdirectory by the name System32, and under System32, there is a file by the name system.ini. And you can see this path, this entire path, to know where this file name resides, system.ini resides. This entire path has been mentioned, separated by backward slash. So that was what I was mentioning as a point of difference between Linux and DOS. So in Linux, it is a backslash, the way it is given here in this example. Sorry, in DOS. In DOS, it's a backslash, whereas in Linux, it is a forward slash. Instead of this slash, you have to give the forward slash. So if I have to now take this example, here C is the root drive, okay, or the drive which we are checking to view all the directories and the subdirectories. Then here Windows. Windows is like a subdirectory under which drive? C drive. Okay, and hence we can see that System32 is under Windows directory. So System32 is a subdirectory of Windows directory, and Windows directory is a parent. Okay, so it's a parent directory of which subdirectory? System32. So this is the child, this is the parent. And then under this comes the file. What's the file name? System. And what is the extension here? The extension of this file is .ini. Okay, so .ini is the extension. So this file resides in which subdirectory? System32. So this is how we mention an entire path for a particular file. Then coming to MS-DOS commands, always remember that there are 2 types of commands in DOS. One is internal command and another is external command. And both these command types are actually executed from MS-DOS command prompt. So if you want to try out these commands, you can always try out even now in the Windows environment if you are using by trying out the command prompt editor. So just look in for command prompt editor, you'll get that black and white window screen where you can try these commands. So I would suggest for today, we will learn just very simple 2-3 commands which you can try it out. Now, DOS differentiates between the 2 types of commands. So there are internal commands as well as there are external commands. Now, in case of internal commands, the entire list of internal commands and its functionality, how should it behave, actually it is embedded or written in a file by the name command.com file. Okay, so this file, inside this file, all the internal commands reside. So all these internal commands actually do not reside separately as a separate file. Okay, all the internal commands, and it's not residing in a hard disk. It resides in which file? It is residing in the file by the name command.com. And once when you start your computer, this command.com file already gets loaded into memory. So you can directly use all the internal commands. You do not have to do anything extra to try out these internal commands. Why? Because once your computer starts, actually you can use the internal commands directly, because the file, command.com file, where actually all the internal commands are embedded, all automatically gets loaded into the memory. Now, let me give you some example of internal commands. We will learn how to use dir, copy, cls, echo, path, and a lot more commands are there, which we will explore in our next video lectures also. And then we have external commands. Now, external commands are not embedded into the command.com file. Just as I mentioned that in internal commands, there is a file by the name command.com file, where inside the command.com file, all the internal commands reside. This is totally not so in case of external commands. So how are external commands residing in your machine? So all external commands are separate files, and they are residing on your hard disk. And each external command, since it's a file, has a file extension. So it can have a file extension of .com or .exe or .bat. Okay? So this is how external commands reside. It does not reside in memory of the computer, so it resides separately in the hard disk as separate files. So each command, as you can see in the last line, examples are given. So a command append has an ultimately, so it's has an extension append.exe. Backup is a command, external command, so it is backup.exe. It's a separate file. Again, command.com. So command.com is also actually an external command with the extension .com. So how will this external commands then work? How will it be run? If I want to run append command, how will it be done? So first of all, since it resides on the hard disk, so first of all, it has to be loaded into the primary memory of the operating system to run these commands and try it out. So definitely we'll also try learning few external commands, but let us now focus our concentration initially on internal commands. So for today, if you want to try out some internal commands, try using the command prompt in your Windows environment. Okay, looking for the command prompt editor, and then try out very simple commands. Like for example, you want to see today's date. So there's a function by the name date. How will you use it? There's the syntax, okay, the grammar of writing this function. So this is the syntax. So simply write date. So I have done that. Let me show you. So this is my command prompt editor. The cursor was blinking, okay, exactly here. You can see the path C:. So I'm currently under which subdirectory and all. So I'm under C drive. There's a directory by the name users. Under this, there is a subdirectory by the name Dr. Gypsy Nandi. There, the cursor was blinking, and I typed the command. What is the command that I typed? Date, and pressed enter. So it gave me the output. The current date is 12/11/2020. So I tried yesterday, and this is the output I got. And not only that, it showed me enter the new date. In case I want to change the new date, I can type the new date in the given format, DDMMYY, okay, with a hyphen in between. You can try changing the date maybe twice. Now, maybe if it is correct date, give an incorrect date and change the new date. And again, next time, again try the date command to give the correct date back again. So this is how you can use the date command. You can directly could have changed the date. Let's say you already know it's showing an incorrect date. What you could have done is write date, then give a space. Like today is 13 November. So date space 13-11-2020. Like shown in the third line here, okay, in the explanation. Syntax to change date. So you can write date, then give a space. Then first just notice it whether it is mm or first it is dd. Okay, sometimes some machines it may show mmddyy format, or rather in some machines it may show dd mmyy format. So in the current in the latest Windows I think it is dd-mm-yy. So it depends on which version you are using. Similarly, you can try out time. So just give the time command. So let's see, in my command line, you can see this is a command line that we see. I have typed the command time. I have written time and pressed enter. So it showed at that time the current time is 23, 21, 11, 87. So it's a 24-hour format. So 23, you can guess at what time I have tried, and it was 21 minutes, 11 seconds, 87 microseconds. And also it shows enter the new time. Let's say you don't want to change the time, just press enter. And let's say if you want to change the time, you could have written 20:20. So like it's 20 hours, 20 minutes. If you want, you can change it. Otherwise, simply press the enter key. And let's say you have tried a lot of commands and your command prompt is full with commands and text. You want to clear the screen. At any point of time, you can just write CLS. Okay. So after trying the time command, I have tried typing CLS and pressed enter. Now the entire screen loses the previous commands. I do not see them, and I get a fresh, clear screen to start new. So I would suggest today, please try out the date, time, and CLS command. One more command that I will explain in this video lecture, then I would stop, okay, is the dir command. So you can see the dir command here. So what is the dir command basically used for? It will show you all the directories and subdirectories under a particular drive, and it will also show you the size of the directory, the date of creation, and a lot of details related to the directories, files, subdirectories, and so on. So how do you write? The syntax to write the command is dir, and then simply you can write dir, or to see the entire directory structure of your system. Or you can be specific by mentioning the drive name. Let's say dir, and then mention the drive name. You can see in the black and white screen shown here, right at the first line, I have written dir, I have given a space, and then I have mentioned D drive, D colon. D colon means I want to see the list of directories and subdirectories in which drive? D drive. The moment I press enter, it shows the directories of D drive one by one. So you can see the date of creation, and it shows it's a directory. And what's the directory name here? ADBU. Then there is a file. Okay, there's a file by the name barna.png. So it is not mentioned as dir. Then there is another directory by the name computer fundamentals. And I have another directory by the name dbms, and so on. You can see all the directories and files under D drive got listed. I can see here. So what actually you can see in your Windows environment is the other screen, white screen, which is much more GUI based and user friendly. So if I click on D drive, I don't have to type the command dir, D colon. I just click on D drive, and all the directories and files under this, rather the folders, we say in Windows it's the folders, are listed out. So this is the difference. You can see in Windows, this is how we see our folders and files in a particular drive. In DOS, you have to write dir space D colon to see the directories and files under D drive. And there are two switches. Okay, switches are like optional to do something extra. So after writing, let's say dir D colon, I could have written /p. /p is a switch for the dir command. So /p allows to pause page by page and see the directories. Now here my list of directories was less, it fitted in one window. Let's say in D drive I have hundreds of directories, so it will not fit in one command prompt. In such a case, you could have written dir space, then D colon space /p as shown here. Okay, /p, you can add /p. Then it will show you page by page. So one page is full, it will not go to the second page. One page is full, it will pause until and unless you press some key. Let's say you press the enter key, then it will show you the second page where you can see the next list of directories and files and so on. Then there is another switch /w. This is basically about how the orientation of the directories are shown. Here you can see if you simply do not write /w, all the directories and files are listed one after another. So lastly, let's see, this is how it shows dir space D colon. I did not use a switch. The directories and files are listed one after another. However, if I write dir space D colon space /w, you can see the orientation of the directories and files that are shown. So ADB is a directory. It is mentioned in the third column. In the third bracket. Okay, it's not shown the way it is shown here in the first case, and all the directories are within third bracket, and all the file names are separated out, and it's shown in a column format, not one after another. So it's a 2-column format. And lastly, it is shown that there are 6 files and 13 directories. It's basically how the orientation of directories and files are displayed and nothing else. So that's how /w switch works out. So today we have just learned 4 internal commands: date, time, CLS, and dir command. I would suggest you try out for this class so that in the next class we can explore more of internal DOS commands. Okay, so that's all for today's first class. We will get to interact more in the later classes through my more video lectures. Thank you.